Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab. We are buzzing as always, and I'm super pumped to have another guest that is literally not even a little bit across the world. He is totally across the friggin' world, a whole 9, 10, or 12 hours ahead of me in Singapore. Today, we have Tristan Frizza on the show today, founder of Zeta Markets. Tristan's curiosity for crypto was ignited in 2017 when he traded his first cryptocurrency, a true degen getting him back in 2017. We love that, spurring him to finish his comp sci degree with an emphasis on distributed systems and proof of work blockchain technology. He then worked in AI research and was a data scientist in Silicon Valley, eventually writing his thesis on Generative Adversarial Network for image super resolution, which he received first-class honors. That is just, that's just word, nothing. I don't even know what that means. We'll have to get into that too. He's motivated by a passion for open source software and the potential to democratize finance. And that is where he co-founded Zeta. His venture aimed to introduce transparency and accessibility to the financial sector, drawing on his deep technological expertise and vision for the future of global markets. The turning point came in 2021 when him and his team triumphed in a Solana hackathon, outshining over 13,000 participants. That's very cool, which catalyzed the transformation of their proof of concept into a prominent decentralized exchange. And today we have Zeta, which has processed over 5 billion in trading volume and is fresh, super fresh, off a $5 million strategic round led by Electric Capital, bringing the total cap to 13.5 schmil. What a bio. Tristan, pumped to have you on, my friend. How you doing? 13 hours ahead of me, 12 hours ahead of me out in Singapore.
Doing great. I appreciate you having me on, Matt. Excited for this.
Pumped to have you on as well. That was quite the bio there. I think that was also the first time in 335 episodes where I've read a part of a bio and have absolutely no freaking clue what someone did. And that is where you worked on your thesis on Generative Adversarial Network for image super resolution. What the heck is that?
I can get into it very quickly, but if you've been following AI, I guess the last couple of years with generative networks and what you've seen with probably DALL-E and ChatGPT, where you can essentially write a sentence and it will go and create an image. If you've used Midjourney, very similar concept. So I was doing that maybe 2018, 2019. I wouldn't say the exact same stuff, but in a very similar space, doing computer vision. And so that's the generative adversarial networks. That's kind of the model that they would use. It's a bit more dated these days, but it was kind of like the predecessor that was what kicked off a lot of this deepfake stuff. All the deepfakes that you would have seen back in like 2018, 2019 were all built in this kind of
working on
model. Yeah, so I did a bunch of research around that because I just thought it was super cool and interesting. And then what I did was specifically, instead of just creating random images, or deepfakes or stuff like that, which is maybe not that useful, what I was doing was super resolution. So imagine you take an image, a photo, whatever it might be. I did it for aerial imagery. You basically like Google Maps or kind of Google Earth. You would take these satellite images, and the only way to get more resolution, right, is just to build bigger lenses, bigger cameras, stuff like that. Yeah. But what if you could use AI to kind of like interpolate it a bit, clean it up basically. And so it's almost like in Blade Runner, how when he takes like the photo and then he goes enhance and the thing goes in and it like zooms in 10x. That's basically what I built. And so it was pretty cool. You could take an image and you could put it in 4K straight away, even like a normal kind of image. And that was like pretty powerful, pretty cool technology, which I thought was like very interesting to build. And I've always been like super into the tech side, into those kind of nerdy things. So I guess that led into the crypto stuff pretty naturally.
That's so cool. So obviously back in the day, and this was, what year was this? 2018, 2019?
2019 was when I did my thesis. But I'd been doing crypto 2017. And then when the market crashed, I guess I was like, let's get a real job, do real stuff, finish my degree. And AI was like the cool thing. And I'd already been doing it for a couple of years. So I kind of stuck to that for a few more years. And then, I guess it kind of came back that I really wanted to do a startup. And then, crypto was the hot thing. I just missed DeFi summer. And I thought like, now's a good opportune time to kind of get my hands dirty.
So like present day Midjourney is absolutely world class. I mean, I'm biased. I'm a Midjourney guy. I think DALL-E's shit personally. Obviously, I use DALL-E and have DALL-E because it's so easy and it comes with the OpenAI monthly subscription. But when you were working on this, if you wanted to do something Midjourney-esque, could you back then? Was it even possible?
Oh, the models have changed a lot. Like the stuff that I was able to create, you were able to do, I basically like my proof of concept before I did some of this aerial imagery stuff was literally doing it. There were like data sets. Essentially, there was like I forget what it's called, like celeb, basically data set of all these celebrity faces. You maybe got like 40,000 images. You can kind of train it on that.
To make deepfakes?
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of like the way to train the model, a very easy data set. And you can kind of tell visually how good it is because you can kind of judge a human face, whereas maybe like a photo of someone's roof is a little bit hard for me to kind of judge what's good and what's not.
Yeah.
And so, you could kind of create stuff there. It would look pretty janky, I think. There would be a lot of like artifacts and like weird parts of the face, or like the eyes would look weird. And you get these other kind of things that used to be a big problem back in the day, where you could always tell if it's an AI image if the person has 6 fingers or something like that. Things that it just wouldn't quite get correct. But now it seems like it's mind blowing. I've been using like Midjourney obviously when it came out and its first couple of iterations, and it's just increased like probably 10-fold, 100-fold from the days of when I was doing it.
Yeah, present day, it's just an incredibly powerful tool. And folks, if you haven't, just check out Midjourney. It's beyond world class. It's pretty cool, especially if you're in anything marketing related. Really does help move the needle. Let's jump into crypto here. You obviously are a builder. You have the tech side as well, which is sort of the arm or pillar, if you will, that most people don't have when choosing to build a startup. That folks like me would have to find a technical founder like yourself who can build. Why Solana? Why Rust? Of all the things you could have chose, what got you going about Sol back in the day? And a little segue we're going to have to tie in. Your pinned tweet, which went absolutely mega viral. I didn't even follow you back in the day, and I remember seeing that tweet. And for the listeners, I'll read it out. This was on November 16th, 2021. This was peak FTX shit show fiasco. I think this was like right when it maybe kicked off. For me, it was during it. But Tristan tweets, peak crypto living. No physical possessions, but a trusty rug to sleep on. And then in brackets, rugged for life. An FTX official hoodie that doubles as a pillow, a laptop with Rust compiler, of course, and mechanical keyboard, everything else in NFTs or earning yield on Solana. And it is literally a picture of a rug, a keyboard, a MacBook, a plug, and a jail bed. Maybe shittier than a jail bed on the ground. And the hoodie is used as a pillow. It is absolutely hilarious. And I mean, you can't see total impressions, but it has 4.3K likes, 500 comments. Like, it went absolutely parabolic. Just classic hilarious stuff. Tie that in if you will, but why Sol of all the chains that you could have built on?
Sounds good. Maybe I'll cover the background on that very quickly. I think that was when I noticed, crypto Twitter and Twitter in general is a pretty powerful marketing tool and a good way to just kind of, it's kind of fun, when you work in a traditional industry, you kind of just do your job. Maybe it's coding or maybe it's marketing or whatever it might be. But it's kind of fun in Twitter. You can, in crypto, you can build a company and then essentially go out there and have this presence, have a bit of fun while you're at it as well. And I think kind of engage with the community. So I feel like my account has become 50% kind of like technical stuff, talking about our product and like, kind of nerdy updates on Solana and some of the internals. Like, I like breaking down essentially what's happening on the network. Why did congestion happen, or what are some of the improvements, and breaking it down for kind of like a more lay audience that maybe doesn't understand the super kind of nitty gritty. And then the other 50%, I just try and do like shit posting, have a bit of fun, just kind of get people engaged, and people seem to like that. And so the background of that one, I just basically had moved to Singapore at that point. I had like no possessions. I brought like literally one suitcase with me, a bunch of clothes, which 50% of my wardrobe at that time was just crypto merch, just from working in crypto. Just hadn't bought any clothes, and had it wasn't really a priority, obviously, just being a early stage startup, probably like 6 to 12 months into its life. And so I just kind of like moved into a new place. I was just sleeping on the floor essentially for a while, and I literally got a 50-inch monitor before I got like a bed or bed frame or anything like that, which was kind of funny.
50-inch monitor?
Yeah, because we were just doing a lot of coding. So we literally had like no setup. I had like no bed or anything, but we got all our monitors delivered, and we were coding, and it's kind of funny. And I think people vibe with that. They're like, this guy's a bit crazy, or it's a bit funny, what these guys are doing, priorities of these devs at these crypto companies. And I thought it just had some humorous potential there. So I basically
I gotta jump in here. 50-inch, is that just like the massive curved one?
Yeah, that's right.
Holy shit. How many windows do you have open on like a 50-incher?
I was doing a lot of coding back then. So usually I'd have like 3 kind of in like thirds panels. Essentially, you can have like docs and coding, and then Slack up or, Twitter up or something like that. And you could do a bit of work on it. So yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep going there.
No, it's fine. So that was good. That kind of blew up, and it kind of kickstarted, I guess, my Twitter career, because I probably had like 1,000 followers before that, and then it kind of like doubled or tripled that overnight, which was kind of fun. But that kind of leads into Solana. I was there around like early days, I would say, like start of 2021, I would say. Basically, over that New Year period, I started building on Ethereum, probably like the kind of Christmas prior to that. So Christmas 2020 was when I was kind of getting burnt out from my job, and I was like, I want to just play around with some smart contract stuff. And then very quickly realized that what we wanted to build, which was a kind of derivatives exchange, was not going to scale on Ethereum mainnet. We talked to all these roll-up providers. They were like years away from launching, and it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And then I looked at the specs of all these different chains, and I see Solana is like the real outlier. It's like 50,000 transactions a second. This seems pretty crazy, given that Ethereum's doing 10. And so for the kind of engineer in me, I was like, this is pretty cool. These guys have seemingly done something pretty interesting with performance. And then I think selfishly as well, I just looked at it. It's all written in Rust. I'm like, I much prefer Rust. It's like an interesting language that I've never actually written in before. I really wanted to learn this. So almost selfishly, I wanted to kind of build in that ecosystem and upskill, as opposed to using Solidity, which is kind of a bit like JavaScript, which I don't really like. But it was cool. I feel like Solana had a pretty diehard community. It was like very small at the time, very few people, very niche. And I was grateful enough to just like reach out to people in the Solana team, and they were really trying to get devs on at the time. And so they were just like, hop on a call with Anatoly, the founder, tomorrow. Let's just like chat shop and like see how we can kind of support you guys. Yeah, it was really cool. And we just chatted about super nerdy stuff like cryptography and a bunch of other things, and how their account model works. And I was just like, my experience with crypto people from 2017 was just like, not very savory characters, and I don't know,
scammers, grifters.
Yeah, exactly. And then I talked to this guy. I'm like, wow, this guy's been building in Qualcomm, doing kind of chip technology and mobile stuff for like 20 years. This guy's very legit. He really knows what he's doing. He's like a hardware engineer, software engineer at heart. And so I was just really like motivated by that. I'm like, I definitely want to build where this guy is building. It seems like he has a great team and they've got a great vision. And that was kind of like the genesis of that was, we want a network that's really performing and really scalable. We want to basically build DeFi that isn't clunky and that isn't slow and doesn't have, insane fees. And that's basically what's been like the bedrock of Solana.
So cool. I can't believe you got on. I mean, imagine that like present day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, now he's an angel investor in us, which is pretty cool. So
so cool. But imagine present day, like building on ETH and being like, yo, Vitalik, what's up, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
Help me out with this.
That's right.
Or Solana or AVAX or any of the really good chains.
Well, maybe the next Ethereum or the next Solana's out there. Who knows?
That's very true. It's very true. Before we get into Zeta, I'd love if you could just sort of jump into Solana DeFi layer 2 plans. This is just an extremely trendy topic at the moment. Sol still has growth. Obviously, price action has fallen a bit. We've had some issues with the network, congestion, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully some recent updates and future updates will change all of this, which we'll get into as well. But let's start with some insights into Solana's DeFi layer 2 plans. What's going on sort of just from a whole high level macro aspect?
Sounds good. So I can give a bit of a quick brief rundown on Zeta. We're basically a perps exchange. We've been built on Solana for the last couple of years. We've done $6 billion in transaction volume over, I think it's like 6 million trades now. We have like roughly 100,000 monthly active users. So like quite a bit of adoption and a bit of traction going on there. And so we've had to scale our systems pretty aggressively on Solana over probably the last 6 months as all these users and trading volume has poured in. And it's been working pretty well. There are definitely kind of some, maybe not roadblocks, but like, hurdles that we'd have to jump, staying up late in the night because something goes down or, we need to fix some bugs here and there. But generally it's been pretty smooth and working well. And I'm pretty like amazed and happy that it's scaled to the level that it has. But obviously there's been some kind of technical difficulties working with Solana, like the most recent one being the congestion issues, just make it very tough for us to kind of build, especially, maybe for a lending protocol or an NFT protocol or something like that. It's maybe okay if your transaction, doesn't land for a second or two, but we're talking leveraged perps and stuff like that. The prices move very quickly in crypto, especially when there's like big liquidations on, major exchanges and prices are very volatile. And so we need to kind of manage risk. We need to kind of liquidate positions. We need to kind of update risk parameters, things like that, margin on the exchange. When you can't land transactions on chain, people can't close their positions and they're going to go into their Discord and they're going to yell at you a lot.
Yep.
We managed to mitigate a bunch of that, which has been good, but it's really nice having our own kind of block space, being able to tune the parameters a bit more to build something that is going to be really competitive with, let's say, centralized exchanges. And so that's where the thinking came for this L2. We've already built an exchange. It works pretty damn well. It's like a fully on-chain order book, which was like the first of its kind. Like everything runs in the smart contract. It's not an AMM. You get really good pricing, all our order matching and stuff like that. It basically looks kind of like a centralized exchange, like a Binance, but everything runs on chain. Everything's a transaction. You can view it on a block explorer. There's the transparency and security of the smart contract there, which is pretty cool. But then, we decided like we want to move past this. It's always like maybe a little bit like at the surface level, a controversial topic. Hey, Solana is all about the monolith, all about the L1. Everything should be kind of directed there. Everything should exist on there. And I kind of still largely believe that. And I think that's the right decision for spot platforms, for aggregators like Jupiter, blending platforms. You need composability, and things aren't quite as time sensitive as, for example, a derivatives exchange. And so that's why I think the L2 kind of does suit in these very niche cases, such as a Perps platform. It suits this use case. So that's what we've been basically designing and building out. We want the order book infrastructure that we have as like a first-class citizen there. So it's going to allow us to get from 400 millisecond block times that we have on Solana down to probably like 10 milliseconds, because we're going to have this like very fast order book, which is going to be in the sequencer. And this will basically make it look and feel like a centralized exchange. And then all the settlements will still occur on chain. And you can kind of bridge in and out via Solana. So once you're on chain, it should be very easy to kind of plug in, get your funds there, get trading. We can also abstract away a bunch of stuff like gas fees. We can also not have you like sign every single transaction every time you trade. Yeah. Like that's a really frustrating thing on our platform right now, which I can't control because I'm not the wallet provider and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to place a trade, they see this order book in Zeta, updating every couple of 100 milliseconds, and they're like, great, I see Solana at $150. I want to snipe that bid on there. They send the order, wallet pop up, they got to sign it, they got to send it. It takes a couple of seconds.
And then it goes away.
Yeah, exactly. So whereas if we don't have that, we have this like session key model. People can just kind of click the button and there's not this like wallet pop up. That's something that we can like start to avoid. So all these kind of things I think pointed in the direction of like, let's build something a bit more customized. Let's build something that's at least like 10x faster and kind of has a bit more throughput that we can kind of leverage. And if we can kind of customize the parameters, I think it'll definitely like benefit our situation here. So at the end of the day, what are we trying to build? Something that competes with centralized exchanges, but you still bring the benefits of DeFi, which are self-custody, transparency, security, etc.
I love it. Well explained there. I'm going to ask you to explain one more thing before we get into some more nitty-gritty stuff. And this is strictly for the listeners, as I get asked this all the time, even just people in my network who aren't too familiar with crypto, or those who are maybe not crypto native, but crypto curious. Be like, Maddie, what are you investing in? What's good? You have any trades? Blah, blah, blah. Couple of these, couple X's, couple Y's, couple Z's. And then I'll say, yeah, a couple leverage trades. They go, what's leverage? What are perps? And I try to explain to them like, I have a 10X long on Bitcoin or a 10X short on XYZ. And they're like, how the hell do you do that? Because the only thing that they're really familiar with is options trading. You're going to your broker and you get an options trading account and boom, you're off to the races. So I'd love if you could explain very quickly, just quick 1 to 2 minute riff here, high level, what exactly are perps, leverage, futures, blah, blah, blah in crypto?
Sounds good. So funny you mentioned that because we actually used to do options back in the day. That was our like kind of initial product that we came out with in that Solana hackathon, which is pretty fun to build. That stuff is very complicated, I must say. And we struggled with a bit of the product market fit just to get users onto the platform. But yeah, we were the first one to implement like Black-Scholes pricing on chain and do all this crazy stuff. So that was a fun experiment, but we had to kind of pull back on that because we noticed that, options is just very hard to get your head around. It's very hard to get liquidity, especially on chain. Having firms that know how to quote this stuff, pretty difficult. You've got all these like math models that people have got to compute.
Yeah.
Whereas, getting into perps, it's basically a perpetual future. So if people are kind of familiar with futures, they're a bit similar to an option. So an option is the kind of right, say a call option is the right, but not the obligation to buy something at a certain date at a certain price is usually how people explain it. Futures are a bit different. You do have the obligation. You do have to kind of buy this thing at the settlement date. And then perps, basically, instead of having this expiry, it's just kind of perpetual essentially. So normally with a futures expiry, let's say it's May right now, there might be like a May 30th future on Solana essentially with a certain expiry. And then the perp basically the perp basically just gets rid of that expiry entirely, which is great. And so people don't have to worry about their thing expiring and settling at the end of the month and opening up a new position. This thing basically just rolls perpetually. And I think the beauty of it is it feels almost like spot in that you can go long Solana or something like that, and you don't have to worry about this thing expiring and kind of rolling it into the next batch of expiries. So it's really good. And so what that provides essentially over spot is leverage. What is leverage essentially? So say I have $100 and I want to purchase Solana or something like that. I can only purchase, let's say the Solana price is 100. I can only purchase one Sol at that time. So I'll be holding that one Sol that I bought for $100, and that's all I can do, right? That's like my full exposure. Yeah. With leverage, the beautiful thing is I can actually buy like the notional value of the position that is greater than the margin or the capital that I'm holding. So say there's 10x leverage that this platform allows me to take. I can actually take a long position on Solana that has kind of a notional value of $1,000. And this is great, right? It's capital efficiency at work. We don't have to have all this capital tied up into this asset. I only have maybe like a tenth of that available margin that's actually being used to kind of monitor this position. Which is really cool, and people obviously like to use it to really amplify, I guess, the directionality of their trading. If they have high conviction, they're like, I think Sol is absolutely going to rip. I want to put this thing on like 10x. It's almost like hitting the accelerator on this thing. You can kind of, obviously get like 10x the gains. By the same token, you can get 10x the losses. So it's this kind of amplification component. So that's why people always have to be pretty careful with leverage, because it has the opposite effect where if the price of Solana goes down 10%, I'm actually down basically like, 10x that, and I'm going to get liquidated at that point, which basically means that my position is sold off, taken over by another kind of participant. Your position's underwater, someone's got to take that over. And then there's usually some kind of like small fee associated with that as well. So typically you'll see these big liquidations happen on centralized exchanges. People are over leveraged. Yeah. They're taking on massive positions with only like a small amount of capital. The market moves or something crazy happens or something gets announced. And even on like a very small move, all these people will just get like, wiped out of their positions. Whereas if you're holding spot, much safer, you're always sitting on the position. There's no chance of getting wiped out. So I guess those are the pros and cons of using leverage, and that's what
snaps to you.
Yeah,
snaps. That was a great explanation, folks. I'm just gonna hammer one point home. As when you first get into this, happened to me back in the day. It happens. I feel like it happens to everyone, unless you're an unreal trader. When you take out leverage, we'll use Tristan's example. If you're doing a 10x lever on Sol at call it $100 a pop, and Sol's $100, you have $100. You now have 10 Sol because you 10x. Your liquidation price is literally going to be like $96. So if Sol goes below 96, which is only a 4% drawdown, I don't know if it's exactly 96. I'm just pulling a number out of my ass here. But if Sol goes below 96, you're gone. It's not like traditional finance where Sol goes to $1. You still have that, we'll call it share of Sol. It's gonzo. So be wary of that, folks, because it happens to all of us. Tristan, we got to take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. That is Prime XBT. And when we get back, we are going to keep jumping into Zeta, as well as Z Token, the $5 million round that you guys just had, and the future trajectory of DeFi. And we'll get into some DeFi summer stuff as well. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime sponsors of CryptoNews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. Prime XBT offers a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet. You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. This promo that they are offering is CryptoNews50. The promo code is CryptoNews50 to take advantage of this offer and receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Tristan. Let's jump into DeFi summer. What's good? I mean, summer's popping off in literally 13 days. I guess when June 1 rolls around, it's sort of like unanimous. All right, summer is finally here. Shitty weather is gone. Sun is present. We love to see it. Everyone's a little happier, a little more giggly, just smiles all around. People are getting outside. We've had a DeFi summer a couple of years ago. Hopefully we have round 2, and hopefully it's on Solana. What is good with DeFi summer coming up in the next, call it 2 weeks?
Yeah, great question. So I actually missed last DeFi summer, like I mentioned. I'm very bitter about that because I've talked to a lot of other people who were around at the time and they were just like, it's amazing. We're creating all these money Legos on Ethereum and people are experimenting with new financial primitives and there was just so many opportunities and stuff happening. So it's been cool in Solana. I feel like there was definitely an early like renaissance, I guess, in 2021 when Solana ecosystem popped off and projects like ourselves got started. There was largely, people trying to re-implement what's happened elsewhere, which is getting all the primitives of like stable swap, AMM, aggregators, lending, derivatives, all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I think obviously the price went up a lot. Solana did well. It kind of got the core set of use cases that it needed to. And then we went into a bear market, flushed a lot of stuff out. Only the strongest survived, which is good to see. Battle tested the hell out of every platform, and then we came back into 2023, 2024. I think platforms were a lot more robust. People had really thought about the kind of risk profile of these kind of things. What happens if, an Alameda whale or something or other on Sol End has a $300 million loan that's about to get liquidated? How do you deal with these kind of things and make sure that they're done in a timely fashion? So that was like a good learning and a good kind of hardening experience. And now we've gone into this, I guess, mini bull market or whatever you want to call on Solana, where I think in the last couple of months, things have started to pop off. A lot of that I think was driven by initial kind of proliferation of Jupiter, which is the kind of main aggregator. You can think of it as probably like the 1 inch or, I mean, it's not technically Uniswap. It's not like a AMM specifically. It's an aggregator, but everyone uses it. It's like the front page of DeFi almost on Solana. That's how anyone kind of swaps tokens and buys stuff on the spot side. And so that was really good. People were just blown away. I think the beautiful thing was like, I've been using Jupiter for many years. I know the team very well, like absolute Chad team. And it was just really cool to see .eth coming in and they're saying like, oh, there's like all this stuff happening on Solana. I want to buy, my first coin there. They used Jupe for the first time and they're like, holy mother of God, this thing like confirmed my transaction in half a second. And I paid like basically nothing in fees. And they were just mind blown, and I was like, this is really cool. Because that was my experience when I first used Solana in early 2021. I sent, I think, USDC to a colleague and it was just basically confirmed within a second and I paid nothing in fees. And I was like, okay, this is like simply better than my banking app or feels like comparable. And I can send money overseas to the other side of the world, instantly and have a proof of that on the blockchain. So I was kind of blown away. So I was very glad to see that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people just were going through this, this moment of realization that these new fast L1 blockchains like Solana were just like a real eye opener. And I think, it just started becoming airdrop season. Obviously, G2 had this big launch. I'd been obviously like putting a bunch of my capital into that because I really love the team and what they're building. Their liquid staking stuff is amazing. So they gave out like, pretty significant airdrop to a bunch of their early users, which was great to see. And I was basically seeing that rolled back into the ecosystem, which is great. So TVL starts expanding massively. Everyone starts paying attention. I think this was like the FOMO moment that they're like, holy shit, like
something's
50,
happening here.
Yeah, like most people on this platform just got like a $10,000 to $200,000 airdrop or something like that, which is just like, it's insane, right? That's like someone's yearly salary that someone just received on an airdrop.
Absurd.
And so people are just starting to like pour in. I'm looking at all like the bridge transactions and like money is coming in. Obviously our user numbers are growing a lot, which was really great to see. And so, a bunch of DeFi projects, I think we're doing really well, ourselves included. We went from basically a couple of thousand users to 30,000 overnight, which was just like an insane moment. And I remember staying up till like, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, what was was there a tweet or a
No, I think it was just literally the G2 airdrop. G2 dropped and then it went to like, $4 billion FTV. And then everyone's airdrop was just like marked up insanely. And then everyone was like, wow, the wealth effect here is crazy. And then suddenly, like tens of thousands of people poured into our platform and a bunch of other DeFi platforms. And it just became the thing after that. And, I remember it crashed our matching engine or something or other. Like it got super congested and we had to go and just add a bunch of RPC redundancy and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun, but it was really cool to just see the number. I was just watching the number literally ticking up overnight. And I was like, oh my God, there's like people are pouring in and using the platform. And that was great having come through a bear market where it was just like impossible to get users. Like no one was interested in crypto in general. And Solana was just kind of, everyone just felt sorry for it. They're just like, oh, this chain is not going anywhere. It's over. It's going to zero. So there was all that like big DeFi boom. And then I think that rolled into the meme coin wave, which I don't know how people feel about that. I'm a little bit like polarized. I think it's, cool in some respects that it's egalitarian. Anyone can launch stuff. Obviously, like a lot of these kind of pump and dump coins and, these private, these kind of initial, meme coin offerings where people just send money to a wallet, which I think is crazy and bizarre. And I definitely don't participate or condone any of that behavior. But it's been nuts because it's just created this ecosystem where anyone can go now with this pump.fun thing, create a pool on Radium for like $2 and just launch like a coin. Whereas, if you want to do it on Uniswap or somewhere, it's going to take like a lot more capital to get started. And
100%.
So it's pretty crazy what's happened. And then, I think we're seeing a lot of good protocols launch, a lot of good protocols like coming out with tokens as well, and user numbers going up across the board. So I think it's pretty exciting, and I don't think there's a flash in the pan. I think like Solana is definitely here to stay. Like it's got a really robust ecosystem. It's got all the primitives that people need, and people have woken up to that. It's like this is this sleeping giant, which I wouldn't say it's an Ethereum killer, and I've never termed it like that, and I don't think that's like a constructive representation. But I think this thing like is a real shot at like proper crypto adoption and something that will scale.
I agree.
And I like it because it's like you get basically as good, if not better performance than ETH2s, and everything is just like on the same layer. It's kind of beautiful in its simplicity there.
It's so easy. I concur with your point in regards to memes. The one thing that I really think is positive for, and again, it's been too soon to tell what the long-term effects and network effects of the meme coins will be, but me personally, I've onboarded probably 24 people, maybe 2.5, 30 people to crypto over the last 2-3 months, just being like, yo, getting texts from friends. Can you get me set up with memes? Like, how do I trade? Blah, blah, blah. And so many people have reached out. I just copy and paste the same shit and be like, hey, dude, friendly heads up, this is a copy and paste. I'm not going to rewrite this, blah, blah, blah. I have a voice note I send too. It's like a 5-minute voice note. But a lot of these people are still in it. Like, even though it's not like it was back in March and February where you were literally just printing, there's still opportunities. But these guys and gals, mostly guys, are still in it. So for me, it's like, all right, if memes are at least bridging the gap and onboarding people into the Web3 ecosystem, that's fine with me. But again, the degeneracy and just nonsensical zero utility aspect of a lot of these coins is wild. But again, it's no different than me, gambling on one of the hockey or basketball games today. You got playoff basketball, playoff hockey at the PGA Championship. I could wake up and be like, yo, I'm going to be a degen, throw $1,000 on, Connor McDavid to score tonight, or I can be like, I'm going to throw $1,000 in Tristan coin launched on friggin' pump.fun. Like, so there's pros and cons to it. I want to go back to Solana for 1 second, because you're one of the few people who can actually talk about this. Another question I get asked, and I can't really do a good job of explaining it. My explanation is very, low level, and it's shitty. The Solana congestion issues. A lot of people always come back about this. And I mean, ETH doesn't, in my opinion, or at least in my experience, I haven't experienced that many congestion issues on ETH. It's just the fact that the fucking gas is $6 trillion and I don't do the transaction because I'm not rich. But with Solana, the transaction still stays very nominal, very cheap, but sometimes it's a piece of shit to use. 99% of the time, it's brilliant. But Tristan, I'd love if you could just sort of, and again, no real question or pinpoint here, just from a broad spectrum, high level, if you could sort of take a deep dive into the Solana congestion issues, that would be lovely, because I'd love to learn about this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll promise not to get too technical about it. But
I will, mate. Thank you.
I will caveat this with the congestion issues are improving a lot, have already over the last month. And there's a lot of fixes rolling out this month. So next 2 weeks that are going to continue to improve that. So I can get into that. So what are the differences, I guess, with Ethereum versus Solana? Ethereum's model is, I'll see how I can explain it, but you have basically this mempool model. Everything's based on like block auctions. You can think there's like a 15-second window or so where everyone submits their transactions. It basically gets put in this mempool or this waiting room, and people can kind of pack these blocks. And you have this concept of MEV where you got to like reorder these transactions and do stuff like that. And you've also got the kind of people who are building these blocks, and you can kind of send a fee essentially to these guys, the gas fee. The higher you send the gas fee, obviously the greater chance that they're going to put you in the block, because they want to make revenue, they want to get paid essentially to build that block. And so what kind of happens is this fairly slow, I guess, batch auction that occurs to put these blocks together. So you don't really have this issue of congestion, because you have this fixed amount of block space that is getting auctioned out all the time, but you have it in a very different form, which is the economic form of fee spikes. And so you remember with CryptoKitties or probably a bunch of these NFT mints a couple of years ago, a lot of congestion goes in there. People are wanting to get this, this NFT mint done. So they're sending a bunch of these very high gas fee transactions in there. People are kind of, the miners essentially are like prioritizing that. And so it will spike your fees up. So you might want to go and do something very simple, and you go in there and you're like, why do I have to pay $100, $200, maybe even more to kind of provide a simple swap or, something like that. So that's kind of what Ethereum, I guess, gets plagued by. Supposedly a bunch of these, rollups will have like a lot better kind of fee markets and how that's kind of handles. I'm not an expert on that, but Solana does it in a very different way, where Solana is very much about speed and performance. You can think about it, instead of doing these slow time-bound auctions, we don't have time for that in Solana. Everything's done at basically light speed, sending it around the world. So you have this idea of a leader. It's the guy who also builds the block. It's basically validated on the network that's randomly selected. It basically just jumps around the world. They get to do basically 4 blocks at a time, which is 1.6 seconds essentially. And this guy will have all these incoming connections, all these transactions from people around the world that get forwarded. And he's like, I gotta chuck them in here essentially. And I gotta start building this block and getting it voted on basically in flight in real time. It's all happening very, very fast. Yeah. And so Solana has this weird opposite problem where you don't really have time for these auctions necessarily. You get an opposite problem, which is people just start to spam at that point. They're like, I want my transaction in there. So whereas Ethereum, you can't spam, right? Ethereum, you could send like 100 transactions with fees, but you obviously don't want to pay all that kind of money. It doesn't really help, right? Like sending 100 transactions or one doesn't really make a difference. It's about the fee that you pay. Solana is different because the fees are so low. People just they're like, I really want to get my liquidation in, or I'm a market maker and I want to put this trade in. They will just absolutely hammer this leader with a bunch of requests. They're like, and they'll take the same thing and they'll just like bundle it up 100 times and just send the same thing. And if one goes through, all the other ones fail and they don't, overspend or double pay. So it kind of incentivizes this spam problem, which is, I guess, being like the main problem that Solana has to deal with. So instead of this kind of economic bidding model, it's dealing with a spam problem. But they're, in my mind, like two sides of like a similar coin, I guess. Each network has to contend with its own kind of weaknesses or trade-offs in its model, I might say. And so getting into what is specifically happening with Solana, there have been 2 main issues. One has been that they rolled out this local fee market. And to give a bit of a background, back in the day, when someone would want to mint an NFT, for example, you would get like millions of these transactions going in, everyone just like clogging up and just like locking essentially this one account for an NFT mint. So you can imagine, if you're familiar with databases or something like that, everyone's trying to write to this one piece of data. And so all these things are conflicting, and you can only do them one at a time, because as soon as you change the thing, it like changes it for everyone else. So all these people are trying to mint and change this NFT thing, and suddenly it's just congesting the network. And the problem was, I might just be running, Perps exchange on the side, on my part of the network, but I get hit by all this contention that's happening here. So suddenly you would get degradation across the whole network for some isolated NFT mint that's really hot. And so what Solana rolled out was local fee markets, which is a good way to kind of isolate those hotspots that are happening in the state space. The problem is some of the implementation didn't quite work as expected. Like generally, like the idea is correct, but some of the implementation in the scheduler, because it runs in this kind of parallel runtime, and I won't get into too much kind of depth there, but essentially you can have this problem where you can pay a very high fee and someone else can pay a very low fee, and there's this kind of race condition where my low fee one can actually get ahead of the high fee one, and it's kind of non-deterministic in a sense. And so they're trying to fix that essentially. That's meant to come out in the next couple of weeks, 2 weeks, hopefully it hits mainnet. But that's been a big problem because it causes this unreliability in the fee markets. So people are going, they're like, I'm trying to bid up like I would in Ethereum, this priority fee so I can get into the block. Problem is, some people are paying this really high priority fee and just basically on like random dumb luck, they're not getting included at all. And that means that people are back to spamming again because this thing is kind of unreliable. It's like set the minimum fee and then just send it like 10 times. So that's one problem. That one's getting improved. Second problem, just to get into it, is like there was some broken stuff in the networking implementations. They used this like quick protocol, and the implementation they used in Rust had some bugs at scale, I guess, is how I would simply describe it. And the way to kind of phrase this in simple terms is, you can imagine this is like a line to a restaurant, or let's say it's like a line to a club or something, right? And so once you're in there, you're actually in the line and you can kind of get processed, and the bouncer can kind of see whether you get into the block or something like that. And that's all well and good. The problem was, you got to drive to the club, right? All these people have to go through these streets. They got to travel through the city, and they got to get there. That's basically the forwarding of your transaction through the network to the leader. So the leader is basically the bouncer at the club who's going to, get you into the club and put you in the block.
Give you the yay or
And so, the problem is all these people driving there, they get lost on the way. They don't have Google Maps or whatever. They don't know how to get there, or they just get like lost on the way, or they crash or something like that. So all these packets were getting dropped by the network or by the leader. It was just getting flooded by all this kind of stuff and had issues. And so the problem was, the things weren't failing. They weren't even getting in there and getting processed by the node. They were just getting dropped and like vanished. And so the way this kind of manifests itself on the Solana network is, you could go into Zeta or you could go into Jupiter, and you would just send a swap, and you'd be like, I want to swap this. You send it, the thing would just spin, and then it would just vanish. And it's just like, where's it gone? Into the ether, no idea where it's kind of ended up. It's not on a block explorer. The thing is just like never heard about again. And so that was a really annoying issue. They have basically fixed that to a large degree. That's been kind of happening the last couple of weeks, a lot of big fixes. So you'll notice this very slow confirming of transactions, which I think you mentioned a bit earlier. That should be like 10 times better now. I think most stuff is going to be landing within like 1-2 seconds now. So they made big improvements there.
Amazing. That was world class. You've been on a roll here. We are getting tight for time. Last question, my friend, and then we'll wrap up.
Yep.
You guys are fresh off, I want to say 3 days fresh off a new $5 million strategic round led by Electric Capital. Electric is one of my favorite words to use, so I love that you guys got the raise done by Electric Capital too. And this brings your total cap to 13.5 mil. Super happy for you guys. Well deserved. Congrats. What's the purpose of the new fresh 5 big mil? What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, great question. So the primary purpose is to kickstart this L2 development. Like I mentioned, we've already built like pretty impressive exchange to date, and now it's taking that, it's scaling it, it's getting more in depth on the infrastructure side and building out some of that, which gives us a lot more customization, a lot more throughput and performance, which is exciting. And for that, we've obviously got to move from just building purely a smart contract and adapt to building some of the rails that sits on. That takes a bit more effort. And to be honest, no one's built an L2 on Solana before. This is like a very new thing, very untrodden territory. So there's quite a lot of work and a lot of research. And there's going to be a lot of like hardcore engineering that goes into this. So we're using this mainly to kind of go and hire and scale the team, bring on more expertise. We've already gone and hired a pretty kind of prolific Rust engineer who's helping us build, a bunch of the kind of technology for that. So that's the main reason. It's also just to kind of accelerate growth, as we kind of go to market where we're trying to scale our exchange, bring more users in. So being able to beef up the team and have a bit more budget to, I think, put into that is going to be very advantageous. And then other than that, it's just great to get these kind of strategic advisors and people backing us. Electric Capital, one of my favorite investors, they kind of invested in us in our seed round as well in a kind of smaller capacity. Fantastic to work with. They're all kind of Facebook guys, were like directors and very senior there. They've seen companies go from like very small to kind of massive, multi-billion dollar companies with, tons and tons of users. So seeing that growth journey and applying it to crypto. They're also very passionate about crypto, the long term, about what it can kind of provide. So I just love working with that team. They're super smart. They keep us engaged and I just like really love talking to them. And then we have some great angels on board. Obviously, Anatoly, like I mentioned, is one of the angel investors that we brought on. So, if anyone knows anything about Solana and L2s and some of the capabilities there, like he's the guy to ask, obviously. So having someone like that in your corner is always appreciated.
I love it. Tristan, you were on fire today, my friend. And we barely scratched the surface. At the rate you guys are buzzing, we're going to have you on for round 2 and 3. Really appreciate it. Had a blast. Before we let you go, please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and Zeta Markets online and on socials.
Sounds good. The best place would be on Twitter at Tristan0x. And then you can also find Zeta Markets on Twitter at Zeta Markets. That's ZetaMarkets.
I love it. Tristan, what an episode. Appreciate your time, my friend. Wishing you guys all the best. Congrats again on the raise. And when I hit Singapore for Token 2049 in Q4, gonna have to see my boy save it up. But appreciate the time. Thank you, my friend. And we'll see you shortly.
Let's catch up then. Thanks a lot.
Folks, what an episode with Tristan Frizza, founder of Zeta Markets. We touched everything perp trading, Solana's DeFi Layer 2 plans, 2024 DeFi summer, the new raise, trajectory of DeFi, tokenomics, Solana's congestion issue, some ETH versus Solana, a little bit of everything. Huge shout out to Tristan and the team for making this happen. To the listeners, if you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. Would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you for everything. Eustace, you are the man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.